Here's the problem I have. Hopefully you can hear me. So if I put my foot on the brake and I just hold it there, you can see my foot has gone down a heck of a way. Now if I do it again, it doesn't feel as though it's sort of bottoming out, you know. It sort of does eventually, but there's a lot of brake travel there. Okay, now it's just, so I'm holding the pressure on the brake and it's going down and it's going down and it's going down. So there's obviously something wrong there. So we'll take a look at the procedure we're going to use to fix this. Right, I've got the usual problem with the lights reflecting off the whiteboard, but hopefully you can see that. So the first thing is to do a standard bleed. Now I have bled these brakes over and over again to try and cure this. I've put an awful lot of brake fluid through it, so I'm happy that I've done that. So that's complete. I've done a visual inspection for leaks. There are no leaks on any of the pipes and no leaks around the calipers. If there was a leak on the end of the master cylinder, it would leak into the brake booster, so I wouldn't see that. And I must admit, I'm starting from a position where I believe that I might have a problem with the master cylinder. But I'll tell you what a bit further on that in a second. So I've done a visual inspection for leaks, and I've also, it's got new calipers on the front. I replaced those halfway through last year. The ones on the back are a bit cruddy, but they're not leaking. So, and they do seem to be working okay. I'm not getting any strange effects on the brake pads. I did have some sticky slider pins, caliper slider pins, but I've removed all the slider pins. I've cleaned them all. I've cleaned the tube out of, you know, that they slide in. I've cleaned all that out and I've re-greased them all, and they're all fine now. So I'm convinced that that's okay. So I don't think we've got leaks. Now, at this point, I thought I want to do a DSC bleed. So that's bleeding the, effectively bleeding the ABS block using an electrical sort of computerized procedure. That activates the ABS solenoids or whatever they are. So I'm going to do that, but I'd got to the point where I thought, I think the master cylinder's gone. So I was looking for a master cylinder and I can't find an alternative supplier other than buying a BMW original part, and they are really expensive. They look as though they're going to be about £500 sterling. So that's pretty frightening. So I phoned up Anthony Seddon and said to him, you know, had you had any problems getting brake master cylinders? And he then talked me through what I'd found and the problem I was facing. And he said, okay, well, before you start jumping to conclusions, why don't you try a few additional things? So the things he said that I need to do is, the first thing I need to do, the DSC bleed, the ABS thing, computerized thing. So I'm going to do that. The second thing he said was check to see if you've got equal amounts of fluid coming out of all of the calipers. Although he said you'll get less at the back than you will at the front, but you should roughly get equal amounts, because he has had an issue with blocked flexi lines. So I will do that. I'm going to do that just to cover that off. In fact, he actually told me to do something else as well, which I haven't got on this list. He said, and we should do this before doing this one, he said, check for the pad movement. So I think what he was getting at, in fact, I'm pretty sure what he was getting at was, he said, get someone to push the brake and then look at the caliper piston and the way it moves, because he said if it's sticky and the last part of the travel as they press and it gradually creeps downwards is actually being taken up by pad movement, then obviously that's got nothing to do with the master cylinder. So that's something I'm going to have to figure out how to do that, because I'll have to get someone to come and help me do that. And the final one was, he said he called them bungs. What he means is take the pipes off of the master cylinder and make up some alternative pipes, using this stuff. And I've got the appropriate little fittings, and I've got a flare tool. So he said, flare some pipes, close off one end of the pipe. So I'll have to close it off in the vise or smash it with a hammer or something. He said it doesn't matter if it leaks a little bit, but try and close it up as best you can. Put those into the master cylinder and then test again. And what he's getting at is, if I don't get the movement on the master cylinder, then it's obviously not a master cylinder issue, which is a really good point. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to bleed the air out of the small tubes. I'm going to have to figure out a way of doing that. I guess if I angle them downwards and then fill them with fluid as best I can, and then try and get them in the side of the master cylinder without losing too much fluid, that should do it. But that's worth a try. I mean, the thing is, by that stage, the next step is to take the master cylinder out. So, that's not going to be any more troublesome than getting the thing out anyway. And then what I'll do after that is I'll get the master cylinder out and do a visual inspection of the master cylinder. I'm not completely sure what fails in a master cylinder. I know it's obviously got the rubber seals. So I know it's got two sets of pistons, one for the front, one from the front circuit. No, it's not front, is it? It's one for one circuit and one for the other, because I think they're diagonal. So you get front right, rear left is on one circuit, and then front left, rear right is on the other circuit. So it could be a failure of the rubber seals. The other thing that struck me was there must be a one-way check valve between the reservoir, which sits on top of the master cylinder, and the actual master cylinder. Otherwise, when you press your foot on the brake, why doesn't the fluid just squirt back out of the reservoir? Maybe I'm being a bit naive about the way that works, but that strikes me as the sort of thing that it could be, where it's seeping backwards into the reservoir, or maybe my brake booster is just filling with fluid, with brake fluid. And apparently that does happen. And you can end up burning it and getting white smoke and what have you. It could be that. But, if I get the master cylinder off, I'll be able to see all that. So we should be able to do a visual inspection on that. Well, one final thing I should say is, after he told me all about the things to do, he said, you should make one of your videos on this, then you can spread the knowledge. So this is his knowledge, not mine. So I don't want to pretend that I'm an expert at this stuff. He does know, and this is the guidance he's given me. Okay. Right, so we've got ISTA Plus running. I'm going to use ISTA Plus. You can use INPA or INPA or whatever it's called, I believe. But I'm going to try using this. Okay, I need to put the car power on. Right. I'll try and get it to read the VIN code. Yeah, it's found it. I think this next bit is done over the internet. Don't know, maybe it's not. Maybe it does come out of one of the ECUs, but I think I found that if you don't have an internet connection, this doesn't work properly. That's interesting, that production date. It says 0109-2005, and I know that this was built in February 2006. So I'm guessing that may be an some sort of ECU change. Okay, it's moved on now to reading the fault memory in the different modules. This all takes quite a lot of time, so we'll skip forward until we get to the point where we can actually start to run the procedure. So after all the vehicle identification is finished, we come to this screen here, and we need vehicle management, and then service functions, chassis and suspension, traction control, brake bleeding routine. And then over here on the right we take this FUB one describes the process, I think, but it's this one we actually want, the actual routine, and click on display there. Okay, the system must be bled with the aid of the DIS after performing the following jobs. I think the DIS just means this diagnostic procedure. And it says connect a bleeder unit, maximum 2 bar. Well, I've got the bleeder unit attached, so let's look at how I've got this set up. Let me show you quickly what I've done. So obviously you can see I've cracked open the bleed nipple on this caliper, and we've got a pipe and there's actually a non-return valve in the little plastic bottle, although I have got I've pressurized the system. So at the front here I'm using the Gunson, I think it's called Gunson Easy Bleed system. So we've got a cap attached to the top of the master reservoir. We've got a bottle here that was full of, well, it was half full actually, of brake fluid. That's gone down considerably because it's pushed the load through already. And I'm using a tyre to provide me with pressure. One thing about the tyre, that you'll see it on the instructions, it says don't use anything more than 20 psi or 2 bar, I think it says. Let's have a look. 1.4 bar, no, not 2 bar. Don't go higher than 1.4 bar or 20 psi. So I had to deflate the tyre to get it to do this. So let's press continue. Carry out preliminary bleeding of brake system according to test instructions. Okay. Continue to next step. Connect bleeder hose with receptacle to right rear. Open the bleeder valve at the rear right caliper and start the brake bleeding routine. Okay. Let me just crack open this. You won't be able to see this, but all I'm doing is cracking open the bleed nipple on this side, on the right hand side of the car. Okay, that's now open. Now we start the routine. The bleeding routine was successful, completed at the rear right. Press the brake pedal, refer to test instructions. So, yeah, you got to press the brake pedal 5 times in this position. Okay, let's see if I can do that while everything's connected up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, of course, without Me having very long legs and being able to see the back of the car, I've got no idea if I got any air bubbles. There aren't any air bubbles in the pipe at the moment. So anyway, I think what I'm supposed to do now is close that vent off. So close the bleed nipple off. So we do that next. Okay, that's done. Remove the bottle. It says next. Okay, let's move on. Sorry about the sound of the fan in the background. This garage is extremely cold today. It's a very cold day. Right, press test. Okay, so I've pressed continue. Connect the bleed hose with the receptacle to the rear left. Open the rear left valve. Okay, so just got to repeat this. I'm guessing on each corner. So I'll carry on with that and then we'll pick up after that. So now I've bled each corner using the same procedure as I used on the rear right. Interestingly, it went from rear right to rear left, then it went to front right and front left, which is not the normal way you do it, or certainly by the Haynes manual, because the idea is you go the furthest away from the ABS block first and then gradually move closer to it, and the closest one to the ABS block is the front right on a right-hand drive car. I'm not sure what happens on a left-hand drive car. Yeah, that was slightly different, but that's a minor thing. So then it says remove the bleeder unit, check the brake level, read out the fault code memory and clear if necessary. So I've removed the bleeder unit, I've topped it up with fluid. Now I've used 1.5 bottles, so that's 750 ml in total doing this procedure. I'm using Motul RBF660, which is expensive. That's why this is such a pain to keep doing this. And it's slightly worrying that I'm pumping more and more of this expensive brake fluid through this car and it's not improving things. So I'm really keen to solve the problem. Anyway, let's see what happens when I do the next thing. Continue. End service function, continue in test schedule. Okay, so that's the end of this process. The only thing it's advised me to do is to read all of the fault codes again, or, you know, the memory. Okay, I think I'm going to have to go through the whole identification thing again, which is a bit of a nuisance to say the least. Read out vehicle data. Okay, so this is probably going to take a while. I'll stop the video again once this bit's done. Vehicle identification number could not be determined from the vehicle. Well, that's not true. I think what we'll do is we'll do a complete restart here. That's not letting me out of anything now. Let's see how we do this. Vehicle management. That's it. Okay. This is the control unit tree, so it shows all the control units. Display fault memory. Let's do that. Okay, can I get it to... Okay, so it's invited me to delete the fault memory, which they said I should do, but I really want to get it to rescan. I don't want to do it based on this. I mean, I know what's causing a lot of these things, so let's see if I can close this down and... Yeah, I'm going to come out of the application altogether and go back in. Okay, it's found it this time. It's a bit quirky, to say the least. Okay, I'm going to let it run through this because it will rescan for all the fault codes, and then we'll start the video again. After a bit of a wait, we're back to here, and I need display fault memory down here. Right, let's have a look through these. DME control unit internal RAM fault, you get that because I've got a power cut thing on the car and it seems to upset the DME, but it doesn't seem to be, it doesn't interfere with things. DSC system voltage too high. Says that's not existent at the moment, so that's some sort of history thing. Brake fluid level, well, that's because I pulled the brake fluid thing out of the top of the reservoir, so the cap with the sensor on it, so that explains that. Yeah, this thing about it being too high seems to have been some time ago because the mileage is different if you look, so that's interesting. Side marker light right faulty. Don't know about that, didn't know that was an issue. Fog lamps, I've taken them off. So fog lamps, number plate light, I've taken it off. Steering column switch center, taken it off, hasn't got that in place. Refrigerant, haven't got AC in it anymore. Haven't got a intelligent battery, so I've got a racing battery, so that's that. No message from the MRS. Well, that's because that's been removed. The whole MRS system has been removed. Faulty receiver combi transmitter DSC. And that's recent. That's got the same mileage number as the... That's interesting. I wonder what that's about. Huh. Okay. That's a new one on me and I haven't seen that before. Rear window wiper, I've removed it. Auxiliary water pump, we don't have one. Central lock-in, I've removed it. Transmitter IHKA, I think that's the, isn't IHKA the air conditioning? I think it is. Anyway, I've seen that before and I don't think that's a problem. Steering column cluster, well, I don't have one. Oh, hang on. Receiver DSC, transmitter steering column cluster. Okay. Not sure about that one. Condensation window glass. Well, I've got the sensor thing on there. Not quite sure about why that's coming up. Alarm systems removed. Roof function center removed. Park distance control removed. Safety module restraint system removed. Siren, don't think I ever had one. Head unit, don't know what that's about, but I don't think I had one. So let's delete them all. Now the reason I think this is taking a long time, and I got to get this with my other little scanner thing, is because it takes time for it to time out on units that have been removed. Switch off the ignition and remove the emission key with remote control from key slot if present. Okay, so switch off the ignition, remove the ignition key. Okay, I've left the power on the car. Manual terminal change, I don't know what that means. Anyway, let's let it keep going. Okay, I think that's done it. Display fault memory. Okay, so what have we got? We haven't got an MRS, so that explains that. All of these things, we don't have any of those, so those explain that. So the only one I've got that's new to me is this one, receiver combi, which is the instrument cluster, transmitter DSC. I have a feeling what that might be is that when you jack the car up and mess around with the steering, it sometimes causes a mismatch between the steering angle sensor and the actual steering position. And the steering position to some extent is measured by the DSC because it uses that uses the wheel speeds to determine it. That's the only thing I can think. I can't believe this is a big issue. I'm not quite sure why it says it's not existent. Yeah, I don't understand what that means. Anyway, despite the fact that it mentions the word DSC, I don't believe that's got anything to do with my brake pressure issue. So we'll ignore that. And the next thing I'll do is I'll start the car and I'll try the brakes again. All right, let's have a go again. Okay, yeah. So I can't start the car because the battery's flat now. After we've done all these procedures, it probably won't be go flat on your car if you're doing this on a road car. But I've got a small capacity racing battery in this, so and I've got a lot of electronics running as well, so it runs it down quite quickly. What I have done is I've stuck a boroscope inside the booster unit, and what I was looking for was signs of brake fluid swimming around in the bottom of the booster unit, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to angle this good enough, but and also I seem to be getting some sort of overexposure thing, but hopefully you can see that there isn't a puddle of I've pulled it out now, but I can tell you there isn't a puddle of fluid in the bottom of the booster unit. So that does make me think that if it has got a leak, it's not leaking badly into there. I can't see how it would evaporate. So this would be looking at the history of it over quite a long period of time. The only way the brake fluid is going to disappear is if it gets sucked up the vacuum pipe and burnt off in the car. But I can't see how it's going to do that, as the vacuum pipe is above the sort of, it's not right at the bottom of the unit, the brake booster unit. That would seem to indicate that it's not a master cylinder problem, or not a problem where it's leaking past the rubber seals into the booster unit. Now, whether it can leak back into the reservoir, I still don't know. But I think we can't tell any more until I try the car tomorrow once the battery's charged again. The battery's charged, so let's see what we can do here. All right, so let's try the brake. Well, it's undoubtedly better, but I still feel it's still moving, it's just not bottoming out at any point. It just keeps going down. It doesn't feel right to me. I mean, it is better, there's no doubt about it. So I'm pretty confused, I've got to say. That's not what I was expecting. I was rather hoping that would improve a lot. I wonder if I can get the brake pressure to work on this. You're probably not going to see this because this I appreciate you can't really see this brake trace, but what I saw was that if I push really hard, I could push right up to 140 bar. Another thing off of the list here, and that is DCS bleed. It's, as I said, it's definitely better than it was. And looking at the pressure gauge, looking at the brake pressure, it does seem to be holding pressure when I just hold it at a constant position. It's when I have to push really hard to get movement in the pedal, and it does make me wonder if I'm worrying about nothing, quite honestly. Now, I do think there was a problem, and I do think this DCS bleed has helped. Unfortunately, at this point, the audio went on my camera. But what I went on to point out was that I decided to continue with the next two tasks. So check the bleed fluid is coming out in equal amounts, and also check the pad movement. If none of those revealed any issues, rather than do the blocked pipe test, I decided that I was going to wait until I'd taken the car to the track again and see how I get on with the car. So to collect the sample amounts of brake fluid from each caliper, I decided to open the vent or bleed nipple and then pump the brake 5 times and then close it and then make the measurement. Okay, so here's the measurement from the right rear caliper, and you can see it's just on 30 mil. Okay, so here's the result of the rear left. It is slightly less at 25 mil. I'm still not convinced this is my issue, because Anthony said that obviously you notice a blocked pipe because the pressures get applied unevenly on the pads and the car dives to one side, which I've never experienced. So I'm not totally convinced, and I don't know if 5 mil is enough of a variation to make a difference. But let's press on and we'll do the front left next. Okay, so this is the front left caliper. As Anthony predicted, there'll be more comes out of it because there's a slight bias towards the front. So that's 36. I have to say we might get a bit more out of the other side, because I think I messed up with the first pedal push. I didn't have the bleed nipple open enough, and it was really hard to push. I did try and bottom out the brake pedal, but I'm not convinced I did. So we may get a little bit more on the other side. But anyway, that's 36 on that side. You can see I got considerably more on the right front. What's that? That's about 46. That's about 10 more than the left front. As I said, when I did the left front, I think I messed up. So that does explain some of this. And I think there's going to be a certain amount of variation. Quite honestly, I'd be surprised if I could get it within 10% based on my test procedure, and there's going to be inaccuracies in this. So all things considered, I don't think I have a problem in this area. If I had a problem, I think I'd see dramatic differences, like half as much coming out of one side than the other. So I think we're okay here. Now again, the audio failed on this one, but if you watch the caliper, so I think that's where I'm getting into the car, that's why there's a bit of movement. And then what I did was I pushed the pedal down and then I held it for 8 to 10 seconds and then I released it. So we should see some sort of movement when I push the pedal, and then we should see it release. Okay, there it's been pushed. So I'm holding it. I can't detect any movement there where I'm holding it, so it's not like it's gradually creeping further shut. And then releasing it, yeah. So that looks fine. Okay, so this is rear left. So I'm pressing down now, and I'm holding it at the bottom. Okay, releasing now. So again, no movement when I'm holding my foot on the pedal. Okay, now we're on to the front left. Pressing down now. I'm holding it. And releasing. Again, no movement on the hold. Okay, now front right. So pressing down now. And holding. And releasing. Yeah, again, no movement. That checks off that one. That was the penultimate action in the list that Anthony gave me. As I said, I'm not going to do the installed block pipes at the moment until I've tried the thing at the track. So let's summarise what we've done and what we've found. So we've run through the list. I do think that the DCS bleed did improve things. It's still not as consistent as I'd like. I didn't really speak about the consistency of the brake pressure or the where it seems to bottom, initially bottom out. That's not consistent, and also it still feels as though there's too much movement to me. But I think I want to try it at the track, and let's see how we get on after that. I may run through one more brake bleed cycle just in case I've loosened up some air anywhere in the system. So I'm sorry that was such a long video. I hope you found it interesting, and I'll catch you on the next one.